And good morning, good people. This is your PoolePRoof wisdom moment. As we look at the world today, it seems as if no matter where we are, people are fighting about something. People are fighting against all kinds of things. People are fighting for all kinds of things. And ultimately, the people who are in the fight are indeed concerned with but one thing, and that is to prove that whatever they believe or whatever they're doing is right. They fight endlessly. And it becomes a bit comical after a while, because why is it if everyone's fighting for something, so few things ever seem to change? We look at the lives that we are dealing with today in terms of all of the key issues that face the world, this country, the communities we live in, and the fight continues. But yet, if you go year after year, everything stays the same. So what are people fighting for? I think that it's very important to realize something that, years ago when I was a very young kid and was always fighting, my mother once having to extricate me from school after another of my incidents, asked me an important question about why I was fighting. And I explained to her because it was something that someone said about her, and I had to fight them to prove that it was wrong. And she looked at me as she gripped my hand and she says, "Baby, is that what you think I am?" And I said, "Well, no, ma'am, that's the reason I fought." And she says, "But baby, if you know the truth, why do you have to fight about it?" That simple question has stayed with me all of these years. I've never forgotten it. And so this day, as I live my life, I don't fight about things when I already know the truth. Now, I know some people, of course, are fighting for good, and I appreciate that. I think we always must do that. But if you're doing it and the way that you're doing it is not doing anything to move the situation forward, to move the experience forward, then that means you're not really accomplishing anything. And that's no way to actually fight if you're going to actually engage in it. Because the question is it more important to be right, or do you just want to be free? If you want to be free of the circumstance, if you want to be free of the issue that is creating havoc, not just in your lives, but in the lives of other people for whom you may be fighting, the way that you fight has to shift according to whether or not it's working. And if you think that the only thing that's important is proving that you're right, then you're probably wrong. Because what's worth fighting for is making sure that it gets the job done, but it also sets well with your spirit. And if that fighting becomes negative and nasty, name-calling oriented, all of the stuff that we see manifesting in all of the various battles for whatever issues there are in these so-called social wars that we're in, then that means that that fight isn't worth it. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your effort the way that you're doing it. Recapitulate, rediscover the means of getting to the core of the issue that you're trying to address, and fight in a way that settles well with your soul. If you're not doing that, and the fact is that what you're doing isn't changing anything anyway, child, it's time to do something different. It's time to try something new. And it begins with not being a complete jerk about what you're doing. It's unfortunate that today so many people think that the only way to fight is to be nasty, to be ugly, to call names, to label people in certain ways. I don't subscribe to that. The way that anything really changes is through example and through intellectual pursuits, I think often, that help us to move things outside of the realm of who has the power. Because if it's not a question of being right, but a question of doing what's right, the only way to do that is in a way that is going to be positive in nature. All of this dirty pool that everyone's playing, there's no winner in that game. There's only hurt, and there's certainly not progress. And if you really want progress, you've got to do things in a way that doesn't require us to be right, but to do right. You get that? You don't have to be right to do right, but you've got to do right so that everyone benefits from the effort that you're putting in. And if that's not what you're doing, good people, it's time to think about a different method. Starting now, starting today, get it done. And that's your PooleProof wisdom moment for today. Have a great weekend ahead. And I hope that whatever you're fighting for, you're fighting that fight because it's the right fight and not based upon your need to be right. I'll see you next week.